G'day guys, instead of doing a written review this week I thought I'd try and do a quick video instead. To be honest, I'm a little bit sick of typing after a 10 race program and plenty of other races in the last couple of weeks, but we'll see if this works, and it might work out better than the written review. So Saturday was a bit of a crazy track with that 6 metre rail and some strange rides. It was definitely better to be sort of 2 to 4 off the rail in the run, and on the inside in the run, and getting just off was definitely the place to be. There were some strange efforts that came wide. There were a couple of exception winners, Lucia Valentina and Sofia Rossa sat a bit wide, but most of those winners came through that same section on the day, so it was definitely the place to be. And it was strange that they started scouting a bit wide, especially turning for home in a few of the races. But no, it was definitely an advantage to be 2 to 4 off the rail and with cover in the run if you could get it. So the first race of the day was the Fernhill Handicap, and Prized Icon ended up winning the race. Not much to report here, pretty even to solid tempo. Some strange rides early, which sort of set the race up for the winner. He always looked like he'd get a bit of control, but Crown Him did report that he was going to look for the lead today, or be ridden more aggressively. And Jason Collett's comments after the race were very strange when he said that he went to go forward, but the horses over-raced, so he restrained it, which is kind of contradictory in my eye. It's strange that he wouldn't let it roll along, and you can see here that he's definitely got every chance to control and lead the race, and he grabs hold. And this horse here with Winona, the Sketty Spirit, who misses the start, is hard ridden, ends up leading the race, which is amazing in itself considering how much pressure she's had to put on it to gab. So he's taken hold here, and he could have put Huey in a position where he had to work even harder, and he chose to restrain the horse and gave Huey the run. But anyhow, they didn't go especially slow, so he still had to do a little bit of work. But the eventual place getters are winner outside the leader, the Sketty Spirit, comes back to get beaten and short for second. And this horse here, which is Bring Me the Bling, only gets beaten 2.4 lengths. Crown Him ends up running second. So first 4 in the run first 4 across the line. Reinforce, the only one to make a bit of ground, he does it wide. Fast forward because not a lot happens in the run here. So Crown Him Prized Icon takes control pretty early in the race. Big worry here is, for me, that you've got Bring Me the Bling running on strongly and only getting beaten 2.4 lengths off 1,000 metre, 1,200 metres, jumping to 1,600 metre preparation, coming out of maiden grade. Is very dicey and the Sketty Spirit, who I didn't mind in the race because I thought it was given no sort of winning chance last start, racing wide, no cover, where it was very difficult to do that in the day, and wide in the straight, which wasn't the place to be. So I could be forgiving of it, but this horse is the one that brings the form back for mine. Crown Him have every chance there last start too, and even though he was pretty poorly ridden here, he still might be a bit average. Reinforced is the one that was back and had to come widest, so you can be a little forgiving, but even then he's pretty plain too. So this form's pretty sketchy going forward for mine, very difficult to get too much of a handle on it. This guy, Let's Get His Spirit, definitely looks like he's going to get further in time, and he's probably scarily the most positive target going forward. This guy has a bit of speed, shows a bit of pace. He outclassed these horses here with a bit of help on the day, being in the right part of the track, being allowed to dictate. So that's about all I could pull from that race. These guys back here are just well beaten. Who knows, they're going to probably go for a spell. Second race was the South Pacific Classic, and another sort of solidish tempo, so pretty much everyone's had their chance. King's Troop sets the solid tempo. The eventual winners here in Handfast. Santa Ana Lane, which they came out and said was going to be ridden more positively, ends up with a 3-wide trail. Others hard in the market were Kimberley Star. Mawahib was quite heavily backed as well. And Chandana was quite well backed, so one of the better runs in the race for mine was this horse sitting out here and Look to the Stars, who sat 3 wide, no cover the whole way, second up from a decent break, and did a very strong effort on a day that it was difficult to sit anywhere near that position and run well. Kind of here, any horse out here on this day was very difficult to say. That you can be sort of forgiving of these, but they're that sort of horse that, you know, puts himself in a poor position a lot of the time. This was the place to be, so Handfast comes through and wins. Kimberley Star drops out. She did look a bit under conditioned in the parade ring, so, and the blinkers on first time ridden a bit aggressively. She's knocked up, but I would be forgiving of her. King's Troop jumping up to the 1400, he set a pretty solid tempo. I'd be forgiving of him. Look to the Stars is right there still after racing 3 wide, no cover. It's run well. Santa Ana Lane looks like it's ready to dominate the race, showing some nice acceleration to put all those early leaders away. But Handfast back in trip with the blinkers on from that, getting that saloon passage up the best spot. Great ride from McDonald. He's just too strong late. I wouldn't say there's much between them merit-wise in the run, and they both run really well. These two, Craigley Wandu and Serene Majesty, are decent enough runs. Chandana's come through the right part, but she got well back, so she's not a bad run going forward. I'm sure she's going to at something like a Queensland Oaks, and she looks fairly on target. Suspense was shown up a bit. His form was a bit soft, and Look to the Stars was only just beaten at the back of this pack, and it's definitely the horse to follow for me from the race. It should be ready next start. King's Troop, I think, could drop back in trip and run well, and I'm sure Kimberley Star will improve. I wouldn't be sacking her just yet. I'm pretty sure she's a tough mare that takes a few runs to get ready, and she's one to not drop off. The rest of these guys are, you know, probably got excuses, but it's hard to make it for that. You know, they're that sort of horse that's going to get themselves into that sort of position. Sonic Swish did cop a little bit of a check, but, you know, still disappointing. So going forward out of that race, yeah, King's Troop, Kimberley Star, Look to the Stars, the one I want to be with, and Chandana's on track for going north. I'm not sure where Santa Ana Lane is heading, but it's in good form and will be competitive in anything like this. But even a drop back to 1200 for him is not a disadvantage, that's for sure. And Handfast is obviously going very well, and this is about his trip, but that he did have every favour there. Race 3 is the Provincial Championship final, and when you've got a field of sort of 15 runners, you expect them to run along a bit, and it just didn't happen here. They set a very slow pace. Powerline was well ridden to take control from Preble. The other sort of main leader looked to be Dream Lane, and QA was pretty quiet on it early and allowed Powerlane to take control very softly. The one's hard in the market again was sort of Danish Twist. His Majesty blew a little bit, but was still in the market. Better Not Blue, who sat 4 wide, no cover throughout. Supreme Effort was back in the ruck, and Heady Heights as well gets back, so they sort of spread out, but none of them were really advantaged by the pace. They're all sort of in this back half of the field, all racing wide, no cover, so these are the horses that were definitely suited by the pace and pattern for the day. Not a lot happens. Sort of get to the home turn, and Powerline with it, Preble's taken off at exactly the right time here and looks in have good control of the race for a long period. The winner here in Danish Twist finally gets out. A great ride from Blake Shin on His Majesty after missing the start and tracking Danish Twist through in the best part of the track. This is a huge run from Better Not Blue. He sat wide, no cover the whole way pulling, and he was just no hope the way the race was run. Heady Heights gets home late. She's a victim of that sort of racing pattern. Same as Unequivocal and Supreme Effort to a certain degree. Parade as well. You know, none of these horses were suited by the way the race worked out or the track pattern for the day. Danish Twist has put in a pretty strong effort here to pick up, like 100 out, still looks, you know, a length and a half, 2 lengths off its leaders who's not stopping. And she runs right through the line. She's in great form. His Majesty was also obviously a nice and solid run. Heady Heights, you can see getting home her sort of pattern, but she did no work in the run and sort of came through the best part. I'm not sold on her. I think she wants slightly shorter and, you know, a run-on circumstance. She's explosive under those circumstances. Zestful's had every possible chance. She's run well. Dream Lane the same, every possible chance. Unequivocal is another one that, for me, there's a 1200 metre, 1000 metre, 1200 metre back marker. This horse, Better Not Blue, is one that is adaptable. Will get 1400, but just, again, needs a cold ride and run-on conditions to suit him. A little bit of sting out of the ground helps too, but he's going well. I wouldn't sack him, and I wouldn't sack Perret. I thought his run was, you know, not too bad either. He just had absolutely no hope the way the race was run. It's hard to know where these horses will show up now, probably in something like a highway race or similar, or go back to the provincials. Some of them will go midweek maybe, city meetings, but, you know, quite a few of them are going well, but need to be well placed, and I'm assuming most of them were set for this race, so a lot of them will go for a break, or we've got to be careful they haven't gone over the top following this event. Percy Sykes Stakes for the 2-year-olds was the next race. This is a funny one with Prompt Response blowing heavily in the market beforehand, and the stablemate Time for Roses taking over favouritism before the start of the race. Twist Tops was hard in the market, and there was solid money for the eventual winner, Miss Rock, where there was $21 sort of bet during the week. Even the third place Get a Sprite was spec'd from 50s into 16s. So there's a lot of money for a few horses, especially with Prompt Response being very easy. And there was, you know, the yard report from her on the day was there was plenty of improvement. So she was in the Kimberley Star sort of bracket for mine, where she's obviously a tough filly that's taking a bit of racing, so she will improve strongly from this. And sort of point out why she's definitely one for mine to be following going forward. Probably main one from the whole meeting. She's doing all this raw ability and not ready to go yet. She'll probably go to Brisbane and measure up to Stakes Company. A couple of conflicting sort of reports. Ball and Muscle and typical Gay sort of reports came from a few corners for the Time for Roses, but she was also bordering on over the top from what I was told. So when she's had to do that extra bit of work early to cross Genito, and the pace was pretty solid here, that was nearly the end of her for mine, and I'm not sure whether she'll be freshened up or tipped out. I think she might have had enough. Great ride from Bowman to lob again in the perfect position here, sort of one off the rail, one cover, outside of Prompt Response. Twist Top's in a good position. Najmart, similar, not a bad position the way the track was ran. Soviet Star. So all these horses have had pretty much every chance. Sprite comes back and wide to run third. She's a good effort, but she just doesn't seem to be able to win. This was the first time she had a serious senior jockey in Tommy Berry on her, so she's got a win in her. I'm not sure where it's going to be, or if it's this prep or not. She's had quite a bit of racing, but here Prompt Response has had every chance on the back and popped off the favourites of Time for Roses, stablemate and favourites back. You can see that she never really has let down at this point, hasn't changed onto her right leg, and being a little bit burly, she does well to battle on so well. Miss Rock's had the perfect trail. 1200 metres first up was a query for mine, but she's run it out well, and Soviet Secret was the one who actually felt the pinch late, if any, and peaked on a run when looking like she was going to be right in the finish, and Sprite finishes over the top of her, so she's done a good job. You see about 50 metres out, once she's headed and cops a little bump, prompt response, she actually changes leg and starts coming again on the line. And even through the line you'll see she's right there, probably headed the eventual winner again shortly after the line. So she's got plenty of improvement in her, and she's a nice, tough Go Waterhouse horse that, you know, they're the ones you want to be on, especially over the Brisbane Carnival on a bit of a leader's track. So she's the one to follow for mine. Miss Rock's not going to see much better conditions than that, but she's a big, strong filly as well. He'll take improvement, and it'll be interesting to see where Robbie Lang takes her. She's obviously got plenty of ability, and the comments Bowman made after the race were very unlike him, saying, you know, this is the sort of horse I can win a Group 1 on. And if you're going to take many people's opinion, he'd be a good one on over the potential of a horse, I'm sure. I'm not sure where Sprite goes, and anything behind, you know, Soviet Secret can go back to Melbourne and certainly be competitive. I'm not sure about her going forward to anything in Brisbane. A little drop back in trip might be a positive for her too, but Miss Rock and Prompt Response, with Prompt Response being the one I'm really keen to follow out of the race. Arrowfield Sprint Race 5. Japanese was a very solid favourite here all through our betting. Ghisoni was heavily backed. Counterattack was quite firm with the blinkers on for the first time in its prep. A few interesting horses here. Spill the Beans was well backed, basically because of the pattern and off its solid barrier trial. And they were the main players in betting. Oh, Petite Fleur, obviously, which it was a bit of a drifter with a bit of money late for her. It was always going to be a huge ask at a 1,200 metres outside barrier testing track, but she didn't have a lot of luck. And you'll see they did set a solid to fast tempo again, so they went a bit quicker than they looked here. King Light was ridden with some strong intent to lead. Sort of looked like a bit of a Petite Fleur. Spill the Beans likely to set the pace, but McAvoy showed a bit of intent early and took the front off Spill the Beans. Takedown parks up right on the pace. Japanese me again from Bowman straight into the slot. Egyptian Symbol lobbed in a perfect position. Hellbent, no problem there. Spieth had an interesting first upper, racing well out of his grade. Just copped a little check there and lost a bit of ground. Ghisoni, who had the terrible draw, and obviously is unlucky, as we'll see in the straight, but did lob into a perfect position from McDonald, and if anything, at the end of this, I'll go through this race a couple of times, but he probably rode the winner too well, if anything. Petite Fleur's been wide, no cover throughout. When she was a distance query, she's in a lot of trouble. Bassett, similar, had a tough run. Stellar Collision has to forced out into the worst part of the track, so these guys are the least advantaged in the race. Counter-attacks at every chance. Japanese me every chance. Takedowns had to do a bit of work, as is King Light. Spill the Beans, who drops out, and Hellbent are both very disappointing in the race. Spieth is racing out of... Spieth's back here. Egyptian Symbol, honest. And this Ghisoni is just towed into the race, back in distance, and you won't see a better thing beaten in this in any race anywhere ever, especially this company. I'm not sure how Japanism's won the race, considering, you know, it's just set everything in its favour. If we go back a little bit, McDonald's sort of committed to this run here. He has to hope a position opens up, and the problem with him is that his horse is going so well that he can't pull her up and rip across heels. There's no gap. These horses haven't dropped off quick enough. He's already committed to this run. Counter-attacks had a soft run, and he's going well enough to hold her in that position, and he never gets up far enough to be able to force out of the gap. It's too dangerous to sort of push there, and you sort of the length and a half that he'd have to restrain back to come around this horse he can't do, because his horse is simply going too well. So it's a tough position he was forced into here, and unfortunately for us, we were heavily involved with Ghisoni, that we didn't get a result. But hard to knock any of the horses really. Counter-attack and Japanese have had the best run in the race, and they're probably, you know, not overly strong on the line, so it's hard to be too excited about their runs. Takedowns run really well at all runs this prep, and when he gets to 1400 around the Gold Coast next start, he's going to be a nightmare to run down if he gets a chance to control the speed. King Like's improved out of sight, being ridden more aggressively, and Gasoni's obviously just tragedy beaten. She's a serious horse, apparently going to the Hawkesbury Guineas, which she will no doubt start a very short price favourite in, and probably win, but not any great interest. This was her day, $14. We won't be getting that next start. Egyptian Symbol, every other horse has really run to its level. Spill the Bean's probably the one that was a little bit disappointing, and Spieth racing well out of its grades, the one to follow if he does drop back in grade, but pretty straightforward race to look at. And Takedown going to the Gold Coast Guineas is a horse to follow. I'm not sure where King Like goes, but he's obviously back in form. Japanese is always competitive, but what you see is what you get here, and similar with Counter-Attack. Gasoni, great horse going forward. She can win anything that they set her for over the next sort of 6 to 12 months. But again, that was probably the last time we're going to get on her at big odds. Onto the Oaks, and a strange race here with some strange rides. You'll see Damien Oliver take hold of Jamaica straight away. We'll talk about the Sophia Rosa was the eventual winner. She's backed from $7 or $8 into $4.80, like just a huge go. Here, Jamaica was still solid, starting a $3.20 favourite, and basically everything else was very soft, with Happy Hannah and Nesta the next picks from Valley Girl and Capella, who was also a terrible ride here, and unfortunately Single Gaze, who does fall on the home turn, but negative ride from Capella, which is kind of okay because you know she's the strongest horse, but I hope he never puts her into the race, and I'm not sure why Jamaica was restrained so heavily with a race that looked pretty devoid of pace before the race and turned out even slower. So Bowman has tried to be a little bit positive and ends up covering ground throughout, but he doesn't panic and just lets the horse travel fairly close to the pace eventually. Probably a winning move really, because he just was close enough to be strong late. Not a lot happens here. McAvoy pops out, it's the only real move. The eventual winner Sophia Rose is wide here, no cover. Second place getter Ambience in the perfect position. Her form's been very average, so it shows what a strong advantage it was to be 1 on pace and 2 in that on fence trailing position with cover in this race. I believe the third place getter was Funley. You know, it was a huge result for us if she had got home, and we had her rated a lot shorter than the market due to the fact we thought the rides on her have been pretty poor all preparation, even when she's been winning. I would have loved to see her go to the front and run along here. I think she would have just about won the race. She's a tough filly, doing it all in her first preparation, so she's one to follow for me in the future. One of few in this race really, because that 3-year-old form from Melbourne over the spring's been pretty poor, even though Jamaica's obviously a huge run in this race and probably should have been in the finish. It's just a messy race. You've got Ambience, who was definitely flattered. Believe done a little bit of work in the run, but not a lot. So her run's okay. The winner sat wide, no cover, and done things wrong, and still won. So she's still strong. So she's unknockable. Jamaica's got back against the pattern, done things wrong, just pace against her and run on strongly. And Capella just was given a barrier trial. I don't know what OP was thinking here. He had the strongest horse in the race. You'll see her late. She's sort of a horse that could measure up in time over a longer trip. She's definitely the strongest horse in this race for mine. Over a trip she'll stay, and the rest of them are a bit limited. for mine. Sacred Eye just needs to go back in trip. But there's a lot of warning signs in this race. You know, favoured runners had toughest runs and problems. Capella was so strong late, just not sure what they were thinking. But another bad problem here is Happy Hannah's got beaten at $7 chance, beaten 12.6, and Single Gaze hasn't finished the course at $13 chance. So there's about 20% of the market that hasn't finished the course basically. So it's just a danger race all around. Luckily we're not going to see these horses probably until the spring unless something pops up in Brisbane, but you know, none of them look like they're going to be a force up there. Capella definitely the one for me. If you're sort of working towards like maybe a Melbourne Cup or something like that, she's something that can improve because she does look like she'll stay. Believes a horse I do want to follow next prep. I'm not sure what sort of horse she is yet. Maybe she'll be a sort of on-pace miler when they work her out and take McAvoy off her. And Sophia Rose has obviously got plenty of ability, as does Jamaica. They're horses that can win races. The rest are just going to be tough to place. Sydney Cup, another pretty lacklustre race. Galante shows the most initiative and leads. Librans is the early favourite with Who Shot the Barman and Graham Marshall, with Galante fairly solidly backed in $10 fifth pick behind a heavily supported Our Moonquith, which was a bit of a surprise that it was met with so much support. The rest were very easy and not really in the race. I was very surprised here that Cafe Society takes an early hold and allows Galante to do as he wishes. And then DIC sort of covers up the stablemate Cafe Society, who I would have thought would have liked to take off a little bit earlier if possible, and they sort of run cover for Galante. So it's this group all going, sort of pretty slow and not doing a lot. Libran every possible chance. Graham Marshall on its back every chance, but a little bit further back, and Who Shot the Barman pulling a little bit, but on the back. So they're sort of in a running line, the three main chances in the race, and this guy's just been left alone. This was a strange move for mine, that of the two stablemates from Waller, you've got Graham Marshall, who's definitely the stronger of the two over this trip, and Blake Shin decides to take off around the stablemate rather than sort of track it and out sprint it, which I would have thought was a much better idea. Allow this horse to drag him into the race as far as he wanted. He knew this horse was going to be strong. The other stablemate, Libran, who travelled very strongly, was always a bit of a class risk for mine. So if I'm Blake Shin, I'm tagging this horse for as long as I can and waiting. And for some reason he sort of takes off around it, forcing it to work harder and Who Shot the Barman to work harder. It was just a bit of a weird ride. Get to the turn, and here it is, like Who Shot the Barman's trying to make a long wide run over a distance that's right at the end of its tether, and just a very strange ride for mine. Graham Marshall, if any, should have been the one trying to do that, I would have thought. McAvoy rides a good race here where he gets to the middle, and probably the best part of the whole ride, as he's been left alone for mine, is that he pushes towards the outside of the fast lane, that sort of 2 to 4 to 6 metre area, which forces these horses to make ground in the worst sort of no man's land part of the track. Who Shot the Barman's already getting tired from having to sustain that run. Graham Marshall's batting away, and Libran looked the winner the way he travelled to the turn, but they've just left this horse alone, and he's in the best part of the track and just keeps going too well for them. A bit of a better ride from Graham Marshall, definitely would have seen it into second for mine. Probably still not got the winner the way it's gone, but probably reverse the placings. But again, here or there, these three were definitely the dominant sort of force. Who Shot the Barman, for mine's proven he's not a strong 3,200 metre horse. He's a 2,400 metre horse, and the rest were just not up to it. So they won't be back until the spring, I wouldn't imagine. And I don't think any of them are up to a sort of Melbourne Cup standard. Coolmore Legacy comes up next. Ascadelia, a really well-backed favourite, which was a real danger sign for me. I really thought that run last week behind Winks would take it right out of her, but she's backed up, obviously in good fashion. I also thought she'd be sort of tracked back and wide, and there wasn't a huge amount of tempo on paper, and eventually it turned out that she was ridden back on the inside, and they went quick. So everything I sort of was hoping for went the opposite. So it definitely wasn't a good result for me, but she was the quality in the race. She was given a quality ride by Damien Oliver, and she was just too strong. So she's allowed to find her feet early, as is Heavens Above, who's the horse I was cheering for. Ty doesn't do a lot wrong on Heavens Above in the run, but does eventually give the run to the winner. There's not much he could do about it. He sort of had to take off when he did, trying to get around Casino Dancer. It was just the timing of the run that killed him. Others in the betting were Zambar, who lobbed in a perfect position. Suavito, who was ridden aggressively early, but again found a positive position. Heavens Above, we'd already spoken about. Naval Protector, who lobbed in a perfect spot as well. And Lady LaFay, who eventually runs fourth, is back and wide, so her effort's pretty good here. She does something no one else really does. And they were the main picks. Get up to the turn. Coronation Challenge had a tough run into Forgive. Miss Rose Delago just never got to a challenging position. That's not her sort of style of racing, to get back here wide and be chasing, so she's another one who's pretty good effort, even though she gets beat 8 lengths. It's just totally Forgive against her. Lady LaFay's wide and chases home really well late. Again, in the hardest part of the track to make ground on the day, and loses a bit of ground on the turn. So Ascadelia here, just a great ride. Go back a little bit. This is where Anglin leaves the fence and gives the run to Ascadelia. He doesn't lose a lot of momentum, but probably just gets into a little bit inferior ground, and she doesn't lose any momentum the whole time, and can use her strong acceleration whenever she wants. Just a cracking effort from this horse. Heavens Above, way up in grade. She's gone to another level this prep. And even with the probably changing runs, it's tough to see that she beat her. Maybe if she had to follow her through or come wide, the result might have been different, but can't be sure of that. Noble Protector's had every possible chance. And this horse here, Lady LaFlay's low flying, but she's just had no luck in any run this preparation. She's had poor draws, and I assume she might be freshened to go to Brisbane, or there might be another race in mind for her, but she's one to keep an eye on. As is Heavens Above. She's only had a bit of a quiet prep. This is her toughest test, and she's on track for whatever they're aiming her for. Everything else back in the race, except for Artistry, was not suited at all here. She can be forgiven. She can go back in grade. She was back and wide here. The rest of them have had pretty tough preps already. I know Suavito's going for a break. Vergara's probably due for a break. Batawere's only had a couple of runs, and she had a tough run here up on the pace. Not too bad, even though she was beaten quite comfortably. She can probably go back in grade or back in trip and run well at her next preparation in something a little bit easier. Ascadelia apparently is going to Brisbane for the Stradbroke. I'm not sold on that. She's had a pretty tough prep, and I don't know why they wouldn't just put her straight away for the spring, but if she does go up there, Kieran Maher's too good a trainer to doubt, so she'd be a serious player in a Stradbroke if she got there. Queen Elizabeth Stakes, the next race. This was an ugly race on paper. Like you have got Criterion, Mongolian Khan, horses completely out of form that could be competitive on their best. You had Lucia Valentina showing up second up from a spell, which is not a regular thing that Chris Lees would do. Off a great run in the Coolmore, but still a question mark. The United States, who was a late entry, but came off a strong win, and Haraki was the horse he beat that day, who looked like he was at a terrible setup this time compared to that, with a bit of a sticky track and a wide gate on a track that was suiting those sort of drawn inside. So it was an ugly race. Preferment was another one hard in the betting that looked like he was going to be suited, maybe settle a little bit closer to the pace than he did, but he just didn't back up from the 2400 metres, and he was very one-paced and pretty sad, even though he didn't have every possible chance in the run. Happy Clapper backing up off that great effort in the Doncaster ran really well, but he was drawn the right spot and does come up the right place, but still no knock on him going up so sharply in grade and off that career best effort last week. They do go quick enough here, and the winner, as you see, is sort of tailed off last and sat on. A lot of praise for this ride from Oliver. I'm not really sure why. She sort of just sits on her, and he eventually tries to go inside on her and gets poleaxed, and then when he tries to go outside, a gap sort of opens for him, and she towed him through it, and I think she pretty much would have won with anyone on her this day. It would have been tough to get a beat. She's back to her best form, and I'm not sure that anyone in the race, apart from maybe the United States and Happy Clapper, are going any good. Raising Romance ran a usual honest race, but I think she's a miler. Like they stretch her out to these trips and beyond, and I'm not entirely sure why. So Haraki, not suited, runs okay. The United States is in a terrible position for him. He's a horse that needs to build up some steam and get rolling into a race, and he's held up between horses and never gets a position to really make a clean run at them and build his momentum, while Lucia Valentina, who's got a clearly superior sprint, just sort of tags him up, and she's so close to these horses that need time to wind up that she's always going to be a nightmare to hold out from this position. United States needed to be sort of up here and rolling by now to be a chance to beat her. Just go back that little bit. See that Oliver does try and go inside here and gets pretty heavily checked, and then when he does try and opt to the outside, instead of having to go around them all, which he might have had to do, he does get that nice split outside of the United States, and everything does sort of happen for him. He gets very lucky. Fermet's in here in restricted room criterion. Not a lot of excuses for all these horses, and she just uses her superior acceleration to put them away down the worst part of the track. So there is a bit of merit in it. She's obviously absolutely flying, and a great win, but very wary of the race. These two are very high quality horses. Happy Clapper getting to Weight for Age for the first time. He's obviously gone to a new level this preparation, and the United States is obviously a very serious horse who can measure up to good races over the spring. So they'll all be, the three of them will be forces in the spring for mine. The rest of them really worried about. Obviously Criterion and Mongolian Khan have been retired, and the rest of them are sort of found their level. Haraki's one who could go to Brisbane and do a bit of damage up there if he draws some soft gates. He's got that nice little turn of foot that is good enough to win over 2,000 metres over the Brisbane Carnival for sure. So it's one that can go up there and race well. Lucky last, and this is just a weird race. I'm not really sure what happened here. Solid tempo set by the winner. A couple of horses that raced around her that were shorter in the market, in Ottoman, who's not a 1200 metre horse and doesn't like to do work anyway, and Bounding, who sort of sat at a soft sit behind on the fence and was short price or $5 favourite. Both fail, so those around had sort of dropped back, but she's maintained her effort and won considerably easily. She does love a bit of a soft going and loves to be left alone in front and roll. King does a good job to probably take control of the race and does a good job. Not a lot stacks up here, and I'm really worried about this race is at form line. Sort of Ottoman drops out. Secret Agenda I've not got much of an opinion on, as every possible, and runs second. Veselay runs fourth, and she's again not one that strikes me as a strong 1200 metre horse. Bounding drops out. No More Tears drops out. Griante runs on okay. Brook Road maybe just a little bit inside, too far inside, but still gets to the right spot, and she's in the right spot in the run, so she runs okay to run third. Cradle Me doesn't like sort of being held up in between horses. I know the stable are very keen on its chances here, so she's going very well, but she needs to be dropped out, and she needs run on conditions to do her best. Peace Force first up, Sultry Feeling going well, not suited, on this track this day. Neither was Very Delicious first up, so these guys you can be forgiving of. Sultry Feeling has a shot at trying to get to the outside. Peace Force sort of goes halfway in between, and she's probably the one most affected out here, and her run first up's a total forgive. But again, it's just quite incredible that she maintains this margin to the line, considering they are stopped. They're not going quick coming home. They've gone pretty quick, so just an ugly race, and there's not much to be learned here. I could be forgiving of Peace Force if she's going to the Brisbane Carnival. She's suited up there. That's definitely a drop back from this sort of grade. Brook Road's going well, but she's tough to place. Griante's going well. Sultry Feeling going well, just not suited here. Cradle Me's definitely going well. I'm not sure where she's going, but if she finds a sympathetic track, she's going to run well. Very Delicious I could be forgiving of first up, and not a lot went right for her. Just a bit of a forgive race for most. I wouldn't be reading too much into the form for the whole race, either positively or going against horses. It was a bit of a funny day. So quickly looking back through the races, horses to follow kinds of things. The first race, not too worried about anything. I think definitely King's Troop back in trips 1 to keep an eye on. Kimberly Star wouldn't drop off her. She may need one more. Look to the Stars as one that can be ready next start. I think she's ready to go. Chandana moving on to the Queensland Oaks is definitely one horse to keep an eye on. Better Not Blue out of the provincial race can win. Plays to advantage with a jockey change preferably, but is ready to win. Just had no luck at both runs back in. Prompt Response, definitely probably my horse to follow from the whole meeting. She's not ready, and she may even need one more, very similar to Kimberly Star, but once she gets to those races up in Brisbane, those listed sort of Group 2, Group 3 races, she's going to be tough to beat up there. Sprite will win a race soon, but she just needs that senior jockey and find the right race. Miss Rocky is one that can also win out of that race. She's definitely one to follow. Beautiful type of horse that's shown she has good ability, and she's now adaptable. She can race on the pace. Gasoni will probably just win the Hawkesbury Guineas, but at what price, and not too really worried about it. Takedown is going to the Gold Coast Guineas, 1400 metres. If there's if it's got a chance to control the speed there, it's definitely a horse to follow. Capella for the springtime is the strongest filly, and that's about it. Oh, Lady LaFay also, I'm sure she'll probably end up in Brisbane or in some sort of race with Heavens Above being the two to follow out of the mares race, who have had sort of soft preparation so far and probably still going to continue on. Haraki's a chance for something like the Doomben Cup, going up and racing in that grade. So thanks guys, and we'll get some feedback off you to see if this is a better thing than the sheets, but hope you enjoyed it. Thanks.